Before anything else, pause. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, like, comment, and share this video if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or trapped inside a version of yourself you didn't recognize anymore. This story, it's not just about betrayal. It's about identity, seduction, shame, and the brutal honesty of waking up to a life you no longer chose. You want to know something crazy? I wasn't the one who betrayed first. I was the loyal wife, the mother, the woman who forgave, who stayed, who swallowed her heartbreak in silence. And yet, I ended up doing the one thing I swore I'd never do. I fell for someone else. Someone who wasn't my husband. Someone who saw me. And that moment when I almost crossed the line was the moment everything changed. This isn't just another infidelity story. This is about what happens when a woman breaks, not because of weakness, but because of a love betrayal so deep it shakes the foundation of who she is. It's about the secrets we keep, the forbidden testimony we never say out loud, and the emotional explosion that comes when you realize maybe the villain of your story isn't who you thought it was. So buckle up, because what I'm about to share isn't just a story of infidelity. It's a wake-up call, a shock to the system, a truth that's been hiding behind way too many smiles. And once it begins, you won't be able to look away. I never imagined I'd live to see the day when my world would collapse without making a sound. Jeffrey's betrayal wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a conscious, continuous choice. This wasn't just a fling. It was a full-blown emotional and physical affair. He found comfort in someone who never shared the bills, never stayed up all night with our kids, never carried the weight of our life together. And yet, he chose her, over and over again. I stayed, not because I forgave him, and certainly not because I still loved him. I stayed for our children, for the illusion of stability, for the fear of becoming another divorced woman after betrayal. Society paints her as the failure, the quitter, the broken one. And so, I betrayed myself, playing the role of the loyal wife while living with an unfaithful spouse who had already emotionally left the marriage. It's funny how someone can commit the ultimate act of infidelity and still twist things around to make you feel like you're to blame. Like you weren't fun enough, sexy enough, present enough. He created a whole narrative that justified his betrayal. But what hurts the most in a love betrayal isn't just the cheating. It's the realization that the person you build a life with is capable of hurting you so deeply and still sleeping soundly at night. You wake up one day and realize you're married to a stranger. Someone who holds your hand in public but hides entire pieces of himself behind your back. Suddenly, you're a background character in your own story, and the spotlight is on her, the woman who got the version of him you never even met. But even in the depths of betrayal, there's a voice inside you that refuses to be silenced. And that voice, it started whispering. Before the betrayal, I thought I knew who I was. Wife, mother, support system. But after everything crumbled, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. It was like I had poured every ounce of myself into holding the family together, only to watch it fall apart in slow motion. And when it did, I realized I had nothing left for me. I was running on fumes, invisible even to myself. That's the thing no one tells you about emotional betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart. It fractures your sense of self. Every day, I wore a mask of strength, pretending I was fine, pretending I still mattered. But inside, I was empty. I was the woman who got cheated on, the unfaithful partner to her own dreams, her own passions. I had become a shell, and worse, I'd become okay with that. I stopped dreaming. I stopped laughing. I became someone who waited for the kids to grow up, waited for the storm to pass, waited for anyone to see me. The betrayal wasn't just a crack in my marriage. It was a full-on marital breakup of my identity. I wasn't me anymore. I was just playing the part of the strong one, while secretly drowning in secrets revealed and hidden truths I never signed up for. There's something soul-crushing about realizing you gave everything to someone who saw you as disposable. I had sacrificed so much time, youth, emotional energy, and for what? To be the woman who was cheated on and forgotten. That explosion about betrayal didn't just happen in my marriage, it happened inside me. And yet, somewhere beneath all that numbness, a quiet fire was starting to burn. At first, the gym was just a place to escape the noise. I didn't go there to heal. I went there to breathe, to be somewhere no one asked me to cook, to clean, to explain why I hadn't left my unfaithful spouse yet. It was the only place where I wasn't the woman who got cheated on. I was just a body in motion, trying to sweat out the betrayal that had been eating me alive. Little by little, something started to shift. I wasn't just working out. I was reclaiming myself. Every drop of sweat felt like a tiny piece of power returning to me. I was rebuilding more than my strength. I was rebuilding my soul. In those quiet early mornings and long, focused reps, I found clarity. The gym became my sanctuary, a space where I could silence the echo of my infidelity story and start writing something new. It's strange how physical pain can sometimes ease emotional wounds. The more I pushed myself, the more I felt in control again. For so long, I'd been the unfaithful partner to my own body, neglecting her, criticizing her, ignoring her cries for help. But now I was listening. I was feeding her strength. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Not as a wife, not as a victim of betrayal,
just as me.
And it was in that silence between sets, that sacred pause, that I started to hear my own voice again. Not the voice shaped by marital breakdowns and secrets revealed, but the voice of the girl I used to be, the one who still believed in possibility.
In joy.
In herself. And that's when I met Aiden. Aiden wasn't just a trainer, he was presence. Steady, patient, non-judgmental. While others looked at me with pity or curiosity, he saw right through the performance. I didn't have to pretend around him. I didn't have to smile through the cracks or explain the weight I carried that wasn't physical. With Aiden, I could just be. And that alone felt revolutionary for a woman like me, still healing from the scars of an emotional betrayal. At first, our conversations were brief. Representatives form, breathing. But slowly, those words began to stretch beyond the sets. He'd ask how I was, and wait for the real answer. He didn't press, but he noticed things when my eyes were puffy, when my voice cracked, when I lingered a little too long in silence. He held space for me in a way even my husband never did. And that quiet presence became addictive. You see, when someone strips you down emotionally, like Jeffrey did, being seen again feels dangerous. But it also feels intoxicating. There was something in Aiden's tone, in the way he paid attention, that made me feel like a woman again. Not just a betrayed wife. Not just a name on a marriage certificate. The chemistry crept in like a slow burn. Nothing obvious. Nothing reckless. But definitely there. It wasn't love. Not yet. It wasn't even lust, not in the beginning. It was awareness. The kind that makes your skin tingle under his gaze. The kind that makes you question everything you thought you had healed from. And the more I tried to pretend it was nothing, the louder the feelings grew. Until one day, it stopped being subtle. It started so innocently, just a moment. A touch on the lower back while correcting my posture. Eye contact that lingered longer than necessary. A laugh that made my heart skip. But unspoken desires have a way of building up, stacking like dominoes in the dark, waiting for one subtle moment to topple them all. And that moment came one late evening when the gym was nearly empty and the silence between us was louder than any words. I knew I should have walked away. I knew I was on the edge of becoming the woman who cheated on her husband. The line between comfort and temptation had blurred, and yet I didn't flinch when he moved closer. His breath was steady,
his voice low.
The air between us was heavy with everything we hadn't said. And as I looked into his eyes, I didn't see danger. I saw understanding. I saw someone who saw me. Our bodies never touched inappropriately that night, but our hearts, they collided. That private gym room became a confession booth, and every glance was an act of emotional infidelity. For a brief second, I felt what Jeffrey must have felt in his affair. The thrill, the escape, the forbidden connection. But unlike him, I didn't cross the final line. Not yet. Still, that didn't make it less real. It was betrayal, just painted with restraint. And just as I felt myself slipping, just as desire became louder than reason, my phone rang. The vibration against the bench pulled me back like a slap from reality. I glanced at the screen, and everything froze. A number I didn't recognize, but a message that hit like a truck. This is the ICU. Your husband Jeffrey has been in an accident. We need you here immediately. And just like that, the heat turned to ice.
That call shattered me.
One moment, I was caught in a whirlwind of forbidden emotions, and the next, I was being hurled back into a reality I wasn't prepared for. Jeffrey was in critical condition, unconscious, maybe dying. And despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the secrets revealed, my heart clenched with fear. I was still his wife, tied not just by vows, but by years, children, memories, and pain. The drive to the hospital felt like a blur of guilt, confusion, and emotional chaos. I couldn't stop shaking. How could I stand by his bedside after almost giving my heart to another man? How could I show up as the devoted wife when I had just shared something unspoken, yet undeniable, with Aiden? I felt like a living contradiction. A woman on the edge of two betrayals. One endured, one nearly committed. Walking through those cold hospital doors was like entering a dream I couldn't wake up from. The halls smelled of disinfectant and dread. Nurses called me Mrs. Walker, and I almost corrected them because I didn't feel like her anymore. The woman they were calling hadn't existed for a while. What stood in her place was someone torn between loyalty and liberation, between betrayal and forbidden confessions never acted upon. And when I finally saw him, bandaged, pale, silent, it hit me. I was still part of this man's story, whether I wanted to be or not. His accident didn't erase the act of infidelity he committed, but it did throw me into a spiral of questions I wasn't ready to face. Why was I still here? What did I owe him now? And most haunting of all, what did he know? I thought he'd be unconscious. I thought I'd have time to process. But when I stepped into that room, his eyes were open, weak, but alert. And the moment they locked with mine, I felt the breath leave my body. His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper, but the words hit me harder than any scream. So, how's Aiden? Just like that, the tables turned, and I wasn't ready for it. He knew, somehow, even from a hospital bed, this man, my unfaithful spouse, had found a way to stay in control. There was no anger in his tone, just calm calculation. That calm? It terrified me. It was the same tone he used when lying to me during his own affair, when crafting stories that covered up his love betrayal. I realized then this wasn't remorse. This was strategy. His eyes never wavered. They scanned my face like a map, looking for guilt, hesitation, weakness. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. How do you explain almost betraying someone who shattered you first? How do you justify emotions you never asked for? His expression said it all. He was still playing chess while I was stuck in checkmate, emotionally cornered and completely exposed. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stood there, frozen between the woman who had once loved him and the one who had nearly stepped into her own act of infidelity. This wasn't healing. This was a power play. And suddenly I realized he wasn't just surviving the accident.
He was using it.
He had turned even his pain into leverage.
And I
was still caught in the game. It took me far too long to understand that this was never about love. It was about power. Jeffrey didn't need to yell to manipulate. His silence was louder than any scream, his subtle digs more dangerous than fists. Even lying there, fragile and bruised, he held the upper hand. He had mastered the art of emotional betrayal, and I'd been dancing to his rhythm without even realizing it. For years, I believed I had some form of control, that staying after the act of infidelity gave me power, that holding the family together made me strong. But looking into his eyes, I finally saw the truth. He had always been 2 steps ahead. He had painted himself the victim, all while orchestrating the perfect narrative. I wasn't just the woman who was betrayed. I was the woman who'd been played. And then came the hardest realization of all. I had lost myself not because of what he did, but because I gave him permission to write my story. I'd silenced my voice, dimmed my light, ignored my needs. I had become an unfaithful partner to myself. That was the deepest betrayal of all. And as much as it hurt, I knew I couldn't keep living this loop of secrets revealed and hidden truths swallowed for the sake of peace. In that sterile hospital room, among the machines and tension, I saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't my story anymore, unless I made it mine again. I had been outplayed emotionally, yes, but the game wasn't over. And maybe, just maybe, what came next would be something no one, especially Jeffrey, was prepared for. So now I ask you, how many parts of yourself have you abandoned just to keep a version of your life intact that's already broken? How long have you stayed silent in a relationship where your voice was never truly heard? This wasn't just a story about betrayal. It was about rediscovery, about what it means to choose yourself after years of being chosen last. Infidelity and betrayal come in many forms. Sometimes it's a cheating spouse. Sometimes it's you, betraying your own truth just to survive. But here's the thing, surviving isn't enough anymore. You deserve more than a half-lived life, waiting for someone else to change. You deserve the freedom to rewrite your story, even if that means burning the old one down. So what will you do with this story now? Will you reflect? Will you stay where you are? Or will you rise from the ashes of what they did and become who you were always meant to be? The power's in your hands. Own it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning of a deeper conversation. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget, your story isn't over yet. It might just be about to begin.